Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. I came across an ancient Greek myth which goes a little like this. A long time ago, in a land called Phrygia, based in modern-day Turkey or Turkey, there was a period where this land was without a king for many, many years. And as a result, an oracle said that the first man to carry an ox cart into this city will be our next king. And a peasant named Gordius came through the gates of the city with his ox cart and was pronounced king. And as thanks, his son tied the ox cart to a pole in that city that was now named Gordius or Gordian, and they made the knot so complex so that it would be very difficult to untie, because it was meant to commemorate the founding of that new civilization, of the coming of the king, and this knot was called the Gordian knot. It was very difficult to unravel, and many years after that, another oracle said that the person who should unravel this Gordian knot would become the ruler of Asia. And as it happens in this legend, Alexander the Great came into Phrygia and encountered the Gordian knot. And like many others, he attempted to untie the knot and was unable to. And then, in one version of the story, he takes out his sword and he simply slices the Gordian knot in half. The knot that countless other individuals had tried to untie with other methods, Alexander the Great had simply taken a sword, a very sharp knife, and sliced this knot in half. And there is a very important lesson from the Gordian knot, and just to add, Alexander the Great did go on to rule many parts of Asia. And the real moral of this story is there are very complex problems where sometimes there are simple solutions that we simply do not see. And in that story, all the other people who attempted to untie the Gordian knot were unable to do so because they didn't realize how simple it was. They were trying to untie the knot the way that we would try to untie our shoelaces with our hands. They did not think that they could simply cut the knot in half. Their definition of how they solved that particular problem was confined. And I think there is a huge lesson that we can take out of the story of Gordian knots. And it is that in many of the things that we want to achieve in life that are very difficult, a lot of these things are situations where we are dealing with a Gordian knot. And the reason I say that we are dealing with many, many Gordian knots is there is always somebody ahead of you. And that is an inevitable truth of life. That is not a negative thing. But if there's somebody ahead of you, that means that there are Gordian knots that you have that they have already found the solution to. And chances are it might have been a very simple solution. And I think everybody can see everybody else's Gordian knots, but you can't see your own. They're very tough. But understanding that there are many situations that you are dealing with in your day-to-day life, things that you are trying to achieve, things that you are trying to solve and improve, where you are actually in the situation where you are dealing with a Gordian knot. Maybe there is a much simpler solution for what you are trying to achieve. And whilst you may not know that you need to unsheath your sword and simply cut the knot in half, it is important to be aware that there is probably a better solution out there and you just don't know it yet. And with 2024, with this particular year, I've set myself overall what I'm trying to achieve since I've left my job and said that I'm going to take a few months off work. I want to try and cut as many Gordian knots in my life as possible. Now, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what the solutions are. I will likely fail at doing these things. But I am aware that I have many Gordian knots which are holding me back from metaphorically ruling Asia, where ruling Asia is really just a metaphor for the things that I want to achieve in life. And I know this because I can look back at so many things I did in the past and say, well, there was actually an easy way to do that. And if I consider the situation where even when I was applying for a graduate job, I went to a government graduate program where I was with many students who had simply studied a 3-year degree. Now, I studied a 5.5-year degree, did an internship, and if my goal was that I wanted to join the government, I went through a much more complex solution to get there. Now, of course, that wasn't my goal, but that's just an example. But there is always a much simpler way to get to the destination that we want to than the way we've taken or the way we think in our mind that we need to do. Really, I want to try and remind myself that I do need to keep an open mind, that there is likely a better way to do many of the things I already do and many of the things I want to do in the future that I'm simply unaware of. And that doesn't mean that I should try to seek perfection and cease to do anything until the moment is right or till I have the right knowledge, because that in its own right is stupid. But it is important to be cognizant that we are all surrounded by these Gordian knots and that there is a very, very simple solution to untie them, and that is simply to cut them in half. So my prompt to everyone listening to this is to think about what Gordian knots are you facing? Is there a Gordian knot in your life where the solution is stupidly simple? And that doesn't mean it's a comfortable solution. It doesn't mean it's an easy solution, but maybe there is an incredibly simple solution to the problems that you do face and for you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So have a good think about what Gordian knots that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. And everyone is aware of this because, as I said, we can look back at our lives and say, well, there was actually a better way to do that. It's simply a matter of not having the knowledge or being too restricted in the way we solve problems. And I think that it is go and have an absolute think over that, because if 2024 is a year for anything, it should be a year that we become cognizant of and attempt to cut our Gordian knots. So with that, I wish everyone great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.